This is Ron Klopfanstein, and you're on the hot seat on a Media Monday.
Hold on.
What do we want? Justice! Now! Robert Brooks! Robert Brooks! Robert Brooks!
Keep.
What do we want? Justice! Now!
Hey everybody, welcome to the hot seat on this Media.
Robert Brooks! Robert Brooks! Robert Brooks!
Hey everybody, welcome to the hot seat on this Media Monday. I'm Ron Klopfanstein. My guest today is Shana Dahlin from the Central New York chapter of Citizen in Action of New York. She was one of the organizers of Saturday's Justice for Robert Brooks rally in Utica. Robert Brooks was an inmate at Marcy Correctional Facility who was beaten to death by corrections officers on December 9th. We'll also be joined by photographer and videographer and podcaster Brian Lazore, who's become a regular on the show. He covered the rally with me for this broadcast. Throughout the show, we're going to play some audio clips like you just heard that Brian and I took while we covered the rally on Saturday. But before we hear from Brian and before we hear from Shana and Brian, I want to begin with this other clip from Saturday. I asked Saya Bequi, the lead organizer for Citizen Action of New York, why he thought violence against inmates, like what happened on December 9th at Marcy, why he thought that was allowed to happen. This is what he had to say.
Because we live in a racist society that criminalizes black people and puts them in mass incarceration. And a lot of these, almost all of these institutions are run by white supremacist gangs of correctional facilities officers.
So that was Saya Bequi. He is lead organizer for Citizen Action of New York. I asked him why he thought that the incident, the beating death of Robert Brooks, like why he thought they happened in prisons like Marcy, and so Shana, you worked with him with the state Citizen in Action to organize this event, and I spoke to you a bit too at the interview about like why you guys organized the event. Are you finding that this is like a problem throughout the prison system throughout the state?
Yeah, of course. And unfortunately, a lot of those stories go unheard. And, you know, this one happened, of course, it get recorded and, you know what, national. So this is just kind of reminding folks about what's happening. And, yeah, oftentimes, again, it doesn't make the mainstream media news, or it does, and then people forget about it just a week or so later. So
is this an issue that your chapter, the Central New York chapter of Citizens in Action, is this an issue that your chapter had been involved in before this?
So, I mean, Citizen Action of New York is a statewide organization, and we have 7 chapters across the state, and each chapter kind of has different focuses of committee work. Or issue work. Traditionally, so far, Central New York is focused on housing and childcare and education. But Citizen Action as a whole, you know, one of our main issues is working on mass incarceration and, you know, the criminal justice reform.
Okay, sure. All right, Brian, so I want to bring you into the conversation here. So you were with me on Saturday. You were at the event too.
Correct.
And we're both videotaping it. We're both getting interviews and stuff. What did you find was like the feeling of the people there? What was the like emotional tone of the people who gathered to rally?
I feel a lot of it was, you know, was sadness and disappointment in our government system for this particular event to even happen. No matter who the person is or why they're in jail, the correction officers are there to protect, you know, the inmates, and they're serving their time for whatever crime. That doesn't mean they deserve what happened to them. And you know, I saw a lot of people tear up and you know, recording the mother, you know,
I was
watching
say,
her
like,
through my lens. You know, I started tearing up watching her through through my camera.
It was super powerful. You one of the video clips, and I have all this stuff up. I'm gonna have this online at uticaphoenix.net. And it's also on my social media accounts too. But one of the video that we put together, Brian, you videotaped his mother as she spoke, and that was like an incredibly powerful moment. What effect did that have on the audience?
I think it just put it more in touch that, Mr. Brooks was a human being, specifically more so because his mother was there speaking.
Yeah.
And Robert Brooks is more than just a name. And, it's really hard to judge a crowd per se as I was watching the mother, but I felt the emotion and the impact it had on her and her family.
Right. So for you, Shana, had you met with his mother and his sister before the event? Did you know they were gonna be there?
Actually, no, I didn't. And I'm glad that they did make it out. I actually had reached out to his father online because, the world is a small place, and we have a mutual connection through our executive director at Citizen Action, who spent a lot of time in Rochester, and his father does a lot of youth programming.
He is a mentoring program.
Yeah,
isn't he?
yeah.
In Rochester. He's very involved in the community and stuff.
So it's just again a stark reminder that we're only 1 or 2 degrees separated from these families.
Every other
stories.
person, yeah. I mean, for 2 semesters, I actually was a teacher at Marcy for MVCC. I taught English 101 and English 102 with a program. It was pre-COVID. I'm not sure if they're still doing it now, but that's the thing is they are people.
Yeah.
In the correctional, the CEO's job, part of their job too, I think you would agree, is to protect them as well as protect society from them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can look at it, but yeah, that is ultimately their job.
Yeah. So in planning for this event, how did you decide? Like, how did Citizen Action decide who to partner with? Because you worked with, there were people from different organizations.
Yeah.
Some of them we have on tape. We're going to play some of those. But how did you put this together?
So I had actually been to the Albany rally that was outside the governor's mansion on the late December. I think it was the 30th, right? Mm-hmm. And I actually saw some of the same speakers there. But we of course reached out to our contacts in Syracuse, Albany, Rochester. And we realized, it's a haul to get to Utica, but, considering this
on a cold day
happened in our backyard, we wanted to do something and do it sooner than later, again, to keep it in the public's eye. And again, just optics-wise, it doesn't look good if we don't stand up and say something. And
Sure.
This is our community. Yeah.
Right. And the people that are in prison, the inmates, are part of our community too.
Yes.
Do you think that how have you found that the public? Do you think the public is accepting that message that they're people too? I mean, what do you see what do you see like outside of your group? Like how are people perceiving this, responding to this?
So I actually spoke to somebody else who is familiar with the area and does some journalism, and kind of was surprised, at least online, because that's where I've been reading a lot of the stories, is there's more people in support or calling for justice for Robert Brooks, and kind of expected for this being a pretty conservative area. I think the video evidence is damning enough.
Yeah, I think perhaps like just the severity and the fact that it was on videotape and stuff. Now when you were at the event, did you talk to anybody there who hadn't? Some of the people that attended the event, I'm sure you had some people there who weren't a part of your organization and stuff. Like they've gotten involved because of this. What did they say? Like what is it that was it a jolt to their senses too? Like did it shock them into realizing this was a problem?
Honestly, not to my knowledge. I think there were some folks who just happened to pass by and joined. But I think they know the stark realities of what life is like as a person of color, as a poor person, or people who are justice impacted.
Yeah.
themselves. Yeah.
Brian, had you been aware of this issue? Had you been followed before you went to
Yeah,
the
I
thing?
followed it a little bit. I did watch the video, some of the video, but I couldn't watch it, the whole video. I got upset.
Yeah.
I know, those people in those rooms should definitely be held accountable to the full extent of the law, but don't let that put a bad spotlight on the good correctional officers too. We just happen to have a situation where there's a room full of bad, correctional officers, and there's a lot of stuff that's not known that does happen, and it makes it harder for the good correction officers too. And I mean, it's a sad situation all around, but I couldn't make it through the whole video myself.
Right, and I do want listeners to know too that I did look online at first statement. I followed this since they have happened. I really don't see any statements from the side of the corrections officers defending what they did or anything. So it doesn't seem like there's
Even the county sheriff came out and condemned what happened to Sheriff Rob Mashel, and he made a statement on Facebook, I believe, condemning.
It does seem like
even though he's not part of the state facility, he still condemned it as well. So it's good to see law enforcement people condemning what happened.
Yeah, Shana, I feel like you want to say something.
Yeah,
here,
so NISCOBO, which is the correction officer union, hasn't put out a statement to my knowledge, but the Correction Benevolence Association did put out a statement
they
condemning it
did.
as well. So again,
Yes.
it's a little bit surprising, but it's bad
Did
PR.
they defend it?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So
They
no one
didn't.
has defended it at
No.
least. So good. Yeah. Do you think that this will result in the kind of change that the rally was designed? Some of the speakers of the rally talked about specific changes that they want to see. Do you think that there'll be any? What are some of the changes first of all that groups are calling for?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously we want to follow the family's lead, but some of the demands that we put out on the petition and call to action on Saturday were to call for a complete independent investigation. Currently, the AG's office recused themselves, and the Onondaga County District Attorney Fitzpatrick is currently doing the investigation, but,
Do you think that's a problem?
I mean,
Or do activists?
depends who you
people about
ask, but
activists?
there's folks who are from Onondaga County, Syracuse area that know that he's had his own messy situations.
Compromise.
And also, I mean, ultimately, these are elected officials who are in charge and rely on votes from, said correction officers and those voting constituencies. So that's one of the demands.
Yeah.
Another is to...
So accountability is
Yeah.
one of the...
Of course, and to not let officers who are currently under investigation to resign during that time period.
Mhm. So are they allowed to do that now? And when they do resign in the face of like an investigation,
Mhm.
is that like stopping investigations? Like is it like a get off the hook kind of thing? Is it a problem? I guess I didn't realize that was an issue.
I mean, I think it's giving them an out.
Yeah. Instead of being prosecuted
and again,
for...
Again, there's very few cases or instances where there's actual criminal charges for, violent crimes that happen in.
And it would probably be
institutions.
better if somebody who like a CO commits a crime is actually terminated than allowed to quit, because then if they're allowed to quit, they could get another job doing the same kind of thing,
yeah.
So, what are some of the other primary demands that you think are needed in order to have real fundamental change so this kind of thing wouldn't happen again?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, there's just so many things that need to change that, like, this type of movement work doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
And there's definitely folks who are much more active in this space and have been doing it for decades compared to me. But,
How committed are you to this? I mean, do you think it'll be hard? More so, do you think it'll be hard to keep the momentum, keep people interested and worked up about this enough to take action, after time has passed? Actually, you know what? I'll ask you that after the break, because we're ready for commercials here. So, as we go to, let's see. Another speaker at Saturday's Justice for Robert Brooks rally spoke of his recent experiences as an inmate at Marcy Correctional Facility. We're going to listen to that now, and then we'll have more after the break. This is 95.5 FM. I'm Ron Klopfanstein, and you're in the hot seat on a Media Monday.
Get right to the bottom of what we had for. Right. Because the one thing about an incarcerated individual, let me tell you about myself. My name is Utica and the last name Lucas, educated entrepreneur. And in a sense, I just came home 8 months ago from Mohawk Correctional Facility. I was in the source. I just did 7 years, 5.5 of that. And I was doing this organization shit while I was there. I was fighting for my people while I was there. So this is not just because Robert Brooks. This is an everyday 24/7 fight. Okay? Survival, sacrifice. And I really know the story. Like, I spent my entire life in prison. Like, I wasn't raised in the streets. I was raised in the Department of Correction. I know these officers. I know the culture. This ain't even enough. This is a monster he's building. I'm telling you, a monster that is very, very rich. It's a lot of money being rich in these hands. Politicians.
At First Source, we encourage all.
This is Ron Klopfanstein, and you're in the hot seat on Media Monday. My guest today is Shana Dahlin from the Central New York chapter of Citizens in Action of New York. She was one of the organizers of Saturday's Justice for Robert Brooks rally in Utica. Robert Brooks was an inmate at Marcy Correctional Facility who was beaten to death by corrections officers on December 9th. We're also joined by photographer and videographer Brian Lazore, a regular on the show. He covered the rally with me for the broadcast. And now we're going to play a video that we produced for the show that features today's guests and several of the speakers that were at the rally on Saturday. I'm Ron Klopfanstein at the State Office Building in Utica at the rally for Justice for Robert Brooks. I'm joined by Shana Dahlin from Utica for Citizens Action of New York. You guys were the organizers of the event, right? Why did you organize this event?
Well, first of all, as an organization, we fight to end mass incarceration. That's one of our main issues that we work on. But of course, with this horrific event happening right in our backyards at Marcy, we felt we had to do something.
Say that my name is Jamal Wali, formerly known as Gino Brown. I work for Citizens Action in Rochester, New York, and I'm a directly impacted individual. I did 18 years in the penitentiary system. 2007, I was in Southport Correctional Facility, a super max that's completely special housing unit. You know what I'm saying? Strictly solitary confinement. I was confined in that unit. I was in an isolation cell. 6 officers in a sergeant came in, secretly jumped on me, beat me, pulled me out the cell, and beat me with nightsticks.
Hello everyone, my name is Luki Forbes. I am the Executive Director of We Are Revolutionary. I'm someone who is also formerly incarcerated. I was incarcerated at the age of 15 years old. I have been through the prison system, not only from the juvenile facilities, county jails, but also entered the prisons. And what I can tell you is in every single last facility, there's a beat-up squad. Robert Brooks is not the only one that has suffered by the hands of these tax-paid murderers. These people who not only cuff individuals, but move individuals out of high populated areas to try to hide from people's view, who move people into blind spots, who strategically try to isolate people before they murder them. When you take steps to plan a murder, it makes it first degree.
Because this type of abuse has been going on too long. That was a senseless murder. There was no reform, rehabilitation. There was no type of way of restraining any violent activity. That was pure murder. And so I have a video. Why charges hasn't been brought yet? We cannot think.
When I first got locked up, and 3 officers, 450 pounds, jumped me in the bathroom. I was 14 years old. I broke my tooth and my jaw. I didn't know anything about racism, prejudice, none of that. I was still young, and my mom never had me around anything that was controversial. I just thought that I got beat up by some cops. Then later on I learned that we had so much history with that going on in the prison and just life, walking around being black. I decided to become a correctional officer when I was 21 to try to change from the inside. I was at East Annex, one prison, then I was at Rikers. And I worked there for 5 years, trying to change everything from the inside, like be a model officer for the inmates. And then they set me up. They set me up, and they got me fired. And then I became a prisoner in Rikers. So now I'm an officer in there, and I'm the enemy all over again. I don't know what it's like to spend years and years in prison, but seeing that even when you try to do good, they find a way to make it negative. I wrote this today, real quick. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. In the matters of truth and justice, there is no difference between large and small problems. For issues concerning the treatment of people are all the same. If we do not maintain justice, justice will not maintain us. The family of Mr. Brooks needs closure, reparations, restitution, a formal apology to get some sense of peace.
That's right.
The officers need to feel the weight of their action and how it has affected so many people. Even though none of these actions will bring Mr. Brooks back or fill the emptiness in their hearts, it will make the mourning process a little bit easier."
My son, he didn't die in vain. His name did not die in vain. He died to shine the light on what's going on. So God came in and used him to shine that light on what's going on. He was God's child. So God used my son to shine the light. Like Jesus was crucified, my son was too. And he gonna come out on top, whether they like it or not. I just want justice. I want them to serve time. They should have never been able to walk out that prison without being handcuffed. They should have been handcuffed from start. And the video shows everything. What is it that y'all investigating? Anybody that see that tape, common sense, know that they should be freaking locked up. They should be locked up. What's the question? Anybody got a question of why they shouldn't be locked up? Tell me, please. Anybody seen that tape?
Yeah.
So what part you don't understand? They murdered my son. No justice, no peace for Robert Brooks. Please say his name. No justice, no peace for who? No justice, no peace for who?
Where's the morals? Where's the values? Where's the sense of just human life? The dead cannot cry out for justice. It is the duty of the living to do it for them. We are the living.
Something you want people to know.
We want to know that ultimately Robert Brooks was a father, a son, a community member, and he was serving a sentence. We understand that, but that doesn't justify being killed in the hands of correctional officers. And this is just one case, but we know that there's multiple similar cases there at Marcy recently and over the years at the local county jails and across the state. And it goes all the way up. So.
Great. And Shana, you'll be on the Hot Seat Media Monday this week at 5 o'clock on Monday, 95.5 FM, or stream it live at 955theheat.com. So, Shana, here you are. You can see the entire thing, the video that we just played on my YouTube channel, and I'll post a link to it also, and put it in the show notes along with the video for this whole show at uticaphoenix.net/Media Monday. I'll try to get that up by Wednesday. So Brian, one of the longest clips from that whole piece there is Jay Barton, comedian Jay Watch, who was on the show a few weeks ago, who I've seen at other events. I think for me watching that thing, the whole thing, I think that was the most difficult part, because I know him and hear the story that he went through. What's it like, as a photographer, and now you also doing the podcasting thing, how do you feel like as a photographer, as a podcaster, as a journalist, when you're interviewing somebody or covering a story, and then you suddenly have this deep emotion, it's a feeling, huh?
It's hard because I try to stay unbiased.
Yeah.
Because, being in the public eye, I'm out there to capture other people's story and tell other people's story, not my feelings or my beliefs.
Right.
With Jay Watch, me and him are also friends.
Yeah.
I met him a year ago.
Yeah.
And we also built a friendship up. And so this is something I didn't even know about him. I had him on my show off the record, and, he didn't even talk about it then. So as I was recording him and watching him and seeing him tear up and tell his story, I got emotional even more myself, because I know Jay Watch, and he's a good member of the community. He does a lot of good volunteer work, activism, and all his open mic nights, and the stuff he tries to do for other artists out in the community. And the story like that, it was just unexpected. So, and like I said, trying to stay unbiased is hard to do, even more so when it's somebody you know.
Right. I mean, for people too that are hearing this, when you see it too, it's even more powerful too, because he does tear up, and I think a lot of people in the audience at the rally did, and it was just something that it just really hits you in the gut, and when it's someone that and I wish that everybody who's hearing this show and thinking about this issue or any issue like this could know somebody who is in this situation. Shana, do you think that is something that, what do you think can be, how do you think we can cross that divide of empathy to get people to really understand that these are people, and even to care about other people in general?
Yeah, I mean, I scratched my head as someone who grew up in this area and, doing organizing work. I was happy with the turnout Saturday.
Oh,
but
yeah,
considering, again, how local it was, and how this affects it was, but, I actually spoke to somebody else, another community member, about, she was ashamed that there wasn't as many people. And, how different people in the community, especially those who are impacted, don't prioritize standing up and speaking out. And I get the fear, right? But I think, again, whether it's the criminal justice system reform or other issues that impact people, there's a lot of divides and just intentional, not educating on folks on the issues and why they should care.
I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding that, because I taught in the prison for two semesters, which wasn't that long of a time. It was probably from a January. It was in the summer semester, from January till the end of July, I think. And I think that what people need to realize, and that what you don't realize until you're in this situation, even as an employee, is that you're so completely 100% vulnerable. I think sometimes people think of the people that are in jail as these savages, we have to protect ourselves from and lock up, but actually when you're in that system, because I know just as working in this system, like you can't like walk in, you can't walk from one room to the next room without permission, you know, and someone to buzz the thing. So like the people that are in prison are really like completely at the mercy of the system and the people that work for the system.
Yeah.
And so, what do the people that, you know, I like you worked with the people that organize this rally, and they work with people in this system more often, I would think, than what do they have to say? What insights did they have? Some of the other people that spoke at this who were like or who have their own organizations.
Honestly, I don't know them very well. Like I said, I had met a couple of them at the Albany rally. But honestly, you know, folks who are in movement spaces like that, like we just, you know, realize that showing up is the first step. But
It is, yeah.
and just, you know, it's ultimately a numbers game, right? And showing out with people power. So.
Do you feel any sense of like discouragement or setback by the recent election? and if so, how are you going to continue? I think this question we're all asking ourselves.
Yeah, I've been, you know, doing electoral work for lots of years now, and again, these things don't change overnight, but it's definitely uphill battle and very layered.
yeah. Well, we're gonna, you know, stick with the battle here at the station here. We're gonna have more too. So, my guests today are Shana Dahlin from the Shana Dahlin from the Central New York chapter of New York Citizens in Action, and photographer, videographer, and podcaster Brian Lazore. We're talking about Saturday's Justice for Robert Brooks rally that took place in Utica. You're on 95.5 FM The Heat in the hot seat on a Media Monday. I'll have more after the break.
Bank of Utica.
This is Ron Klopfanstein, and you're in the hot seat on a Media Monday. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. My guest today is Shana Dahlin from the Central New York chapter of Citizens in Action of New York. She was one of the organizers of Saturday's Justice for Robert Brooks rally in Utica. Robert Brooks was an inmate at the Marcy Correctional Facility who was beaten to death by corrections officers on December 9th. We're also joined by photographer, videographer, and podcaster Brian Lazore, a regular on the show. He's covered the rally with me for this broadcast, and throughout the show we've been listening to some audio clips that he and I recorded on Saturday. Another speaker at Saturday's Justice for Robert Brooks rally spoke of his recent experiences as an inmate at the Marcy Correctional Facility. We'll listen to that now.
And get right to the bottom of what we had for. Because the one thing about an incarcerated individual, let me tell you about myself. My name is Utica, stands for last name Lucas, educated entrepreneur, and in a sense, I just came home 8 months ago from the correctional facility. I was in the source. Just did 7 years, 5.5 of that. And I was doing this organization shit while I was there. I was fighting for my people while I was there. So this is not just because Robert Brooks. This is an everyday 24/7 fight. Okay? Survival, sacrifice. Because I really know the story. And I spent my entire life in prison. Like, I wasn't raised in the streets. I was raised in the Department of Corrections. I know these officers. I know the culture. This ain't even enough. It's a monster. I'm telling you, a monster that is very, very rich. It's a lot of money being rich these hands. Politicians.
So, Shana, for the people, for everybody who, most people by now have seen the video of what happened and were shocked by it. But for those who have not, I just want to read this. This is a description written by Brendan Lyons in the Times Union newspaper. He wrote, "The video footage begins with Brooks lying on the ground near a fence by the Marcy prison's sally port. He is handcuffed behind his back, which is like, I think, a really gruesome, particularly gruesome, detail. It's unclear from the footage whether any physical force had been used on Brooks outside. After he is carried into a nearby infirmary, Brooks was placed on an examination bed. Over the next 10 minutes, he was punched, kicked, and appeared to be choked, or at least lifted up by the neck by 5 officers." And Governor Kathy Hochul had a statement this is in CNN, a statement she released. She said that she was outraged and horrified by Brooks' senseless killing and announced that she would appoint a new superintendent at Marcy Correctional Facility and expedite a $400 million lawsuit, expedite $400 million to install fixed cameras and distribute body-worn cameras at all Department of Correction and Community Services facilities. Shana, do you think that the nature of this crime, the facts of this, are so incredibly gruesome that it maybe will kind of shock people's sensibilities to the point of beginning to have more, like we talked about, like more empathy maybe for people that are inmates or people that are in prison.
And I just want to be clear. I think shocked might not, because I think there's a significant number of people that aren't shocked and are familiar with just the violence, the degree of violence that happens every day in these prisons, jails, etc.
Why do you think people? Why do you think that more people are aware of that? Because I guess I tend to think that people mostly get a lot of their view of those kinds of things from television shows that kind of tend to glorify more of the law enforcement side of things.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know. I think, again, there's not that many people that either have experienced themselves or like been in the prisons, whether it's doing the work like you did, teaching, or other kind of,
I mean, do you think, like, by not shocked, you mean people were like, I think, the thing that we're all kind of afraid of is people seeing something like that and not being offended or not being outraged. Do you think there's some people who like didn't react to it like the way that we did?
Oh, well, definitely. Just, again, reading the different comments on the online, the news stories, etc. on social media.
I think you tend to see the worst in humanity on the social media on the social media Facebook pages. I mean, I've seen clips about this stuff on Utica, on the Utica OD Facebook page and WKTV, laughing emojis, and sometimes you just wonder, and like this is kind of a question I ask of most people, and to some degree on this show, it's like, especially if they're involved in like what we're involved in, what is wrong with people?
Well, a lot of it's just socialization, and then as I mentioned, this area, is, even as diverse as it is, it's not diverse in thought.
How so?
I think, and especially one thing that people pride themselves on, especially in Utica, is that you're born here, you lived your whole life here, never left here, and being kind of isolated and insulated, you don't get, well, I mean, again, you could even go down the block and, experience a whole other world, but people
choose not to.
Live in those silos.
Yeah.
And again, kind of double down on their values and aren't really willing to open up to be like, oh well, maybe it is really tough being incarcerated. Oh, maybe they didn't commit that crime, but because of systemic racism and other things, like that person had or didn't have bail money, right?
It didn't have bail money,
or whatever. So there's so many factors that play into how people actually get charged and sentenced and serve time.
And it's hard for people to like make that leap and really grasp that point. That the system itself at every level is unfair.
And especially even if you do serve your time, right? Justifiably, like. In my day job, our organization helps folks with reentry, and just, again, even though New York has made some improvements over the years in terms of restoring like voting rights and access to housing, the Clean Slate Act just went into effect last November.
What does the Clean Slate Act do?
So it's essentially automatically seals criminal records after X amount of time, and there's different layers to it, but there's a lot of people that like. So
it helps people it helps to cut down on recidivism, I'm sure, if people can get jobs.
Yeah, jobs, housing. Like there's definitely a lot of barriers that people don't talk about.
Right.
and that leads to recidivism.
I mean, there's
yeah.
so much, you know, the impression and the bias that people might have against people. So Brian, I just read like a description of what happened to Robert Brooks, you know, and a lot of people saw the video. You said you saw it yourself.
Yeah, I watched part of it.
Yeah, I mean, what did you think when you saw that? As someone who has PTSD, it's like got to be even more.
You know, my mental health didn't play in the factor. It was just, you know, humane aspect.
Yeah.
You know, no human should be treated like that. And like I was telling you off there, even when I was in Iraq, doing combat missions, whenever we caught, you know, enemies who were shooting at us, we still treated them with dignity and respect.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just hard seeing a human being abused like that by people in power, and it shouldn't happen. And it was just disgusting. I didn't watch the whole video, and I think like boils back down to you know, people's reactions with social media too. A lot of people I think have become desensitized to violence because of TV, movies, video games, and such like that. And I mean, you can't, you know, change people's opinions. I mean, you could sway them a little bit, but I think not until they experience something tragic themselves and they're like, oh, okay, you know, they see a different side of the coin.
So when you were in Iraq and you had prisoners that like you were taking custody of until they went somewhere else, like what did you guys do to like keep your equilibrium, like emotionally? Like I'm sure you had some prisoners that probably did test your patience, and probably some were.
I mean, myself personally, you know, whatever, you know, prisoners of war we captured, either, you know, enemies shooting at us or, you know, people smuggling weapons in Iraq and stuff like that. I never saw any ill will or ill intent. We all did what we were trained to do, and you know, when you're, you know, in a combat MOS in the military, you know, your mission.
What is that MOS?
It's your job. I was 11 Bravo, which is infantry, combat infantry.
Oh, okay.
And you know, we're trained. You know, you talk to veterans. At the end of the day, we were trained to kill. That's our job. Kicking doors and trained to kill.
Right.
But also, we are humans, and we did a lot of humanitarian services and stuff like that. But we were never trained. You know, if the person's unarmed, they're not an enemy anymore.
Right.
You know,
and I'm sure you're trained to control yourself at all times too. You know, it's like, and that's seems to be like, is that what happened, Shana? Here, did the what do you think happened? What do people think happened? Is this really like a routine thing, or is this something where just some confluence of everybody lost their temper and lost their crap all at once, or?
Judging by the stories that I've heard, I mean, I don't know if it happens necessarily every day, but it happens much more frequently than we realize.
Everybody who spoke said
and
that.
again, I don't know if there was a whistleblower that like pointed people to have the body camera footage released. Again, the audio wasn't even recording or released.
Yeah,
so.
there's a lot of fishy things like that, I think.
They just seem too comfortable. For my aspect of watching it, they seemed too comfortable in what they were doing. Like it wasn't the first time they did it to somebody.
And again,
other people have said that too.
They just felt it seemed like it was just like an everyday thing that they were doing.
And the fact that there were people that were just standing around witnessing it and laughing and smiling,
including a nurse who also.
Right, exactly. So it wasn't just CO staff that were involved.
There's no denying the evidence, the video. You can't deny it happened.
Even without the audio.
Yeah. Do you think it'll be enough? It seems so often like people that do this kind of thing, like there's outrage and there's videotape, and you know, it just seems like they get away with it so often. Do you think that the COs who did this will, I mean, fired, I would hope, but I mean, at least like charged with, you know,
I mean,
assault
that
or
is,
murder? Or?
That is the hope. Again, I don't know how high the charges will be, but you know, again, I have very little faith that really monumental change will happen, but I think even from the union's perspective, you know,
it says a lot that the union didn't back them.
It didn't back them, but like to some point they have to offer up some sort of like sacrifice, right? To appease the public.
Yeah.
And look, we did our good job. Let us, and then
like offer them up as the bad apples and say like, we've taken care of
we've addressed the issue.
We've addressed the issue.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you think that'll happen like lips? Well, actually, here's the question: like, if you knowing that systemic change does take a long time, and that this is an issue where you, particularly this population, you do have to change the public's hearts and minds.
Right.
What keeps you going, motivated to continue working on this?
Well,
as a person, you individually, and I'll ask you that too. Like, it's hard to go out there and cover stories. I was out there too. It was freezing cold. Like, I'm going to ask you too. Like, what is it that makes us keep going and doing this thing? So, Shane, let's start with you.
Yeah. So, I watched the whole video, as horrifying as it was, because again, I wasn't necessarily surprised, but I think it's again that reminder. Like, this is why we do the hard work, the long work. Like, no one should have to suffer like that. And
it shows you a bit too, like what happens when people aren't paying attention. When people think no one's watching them.
Exactly.
What these people do especially when they get together. So
behind closed doors.
Yeah. So that's what motivates you to continue with this work. You're not going to give up on this, and
Yeah, and over the years, through my involvement with Citizen.
How many years have you been involved with Citizen Action?
So since the beginning, actually. So we officially became a chapter in early 2018, but
wow.
I moved back to the area actually the summer of 2016. And
oh yeah.
That really spurred me to get involved locally in activism and politics.
So you're from this area?
Yes, I grew up in Clinton.
Oh yeah? Oh cool. Yeah. So then you went away to college and returned home?
College, and then I was overseas for about 7 years. So.
Wow. Doing what?
Teaching English.
Oh really? Oh cool. Hey, that's like me. Yeah, and actually I have a bunch of students who are ENL, so I teach English to students who don't know English. So it's like it's quite a thing there. So Brian, how about you? So why is it that what motivates you to keep going and creating the art that you do? Because it was freezing cold. We're out there, and I was out there too, and we care about the issue too. But what is it that gives you that spark to keep going?
Well, as a photographer in a business and a veteran, giving back to the community, gives me purpose. And with causes like this, I give the pictures out for free, and I don't charge.
The videos.
And I don't charge for certain events because I'm trying to help raise awareness, tell everybody else's story.
Yeah.
And I just ask for tips or donations for any pictures of what people want, and then it just all depends on the event. But I'm just out there to tell other people's story, and it doesn't matter what the story is, because like I said before, you got to try to stay unbiased. I photographed Republicans.
Oh yeah, right.
Doing their gatherings, and I photographed Democrats out there. Sometimes I lose followers online based on who I photograph or what I share, but it's not my story. I'm telling the story what's out there in public.
Right.
And it's informative to the public too. But for me personally, I feel it just gives me a purpose.
And the things you point your lens at to give attention to, you do a lot of good. And I want to say that in those video clips, I think the two most moving and impactful statements are the ones that were given by Jay Barton, Jay Watch, and by his mom. And those are videos that you took, Brian. So I'm so glad that you got that. Because
I was glad to work with you too.
That's really good stuff. It's a powerful thing to point your camera at someone and give them a platform. Like Shana, we're talking about this in the commercial break. I think it's really these conversations. I think have to be had, right?
Exactly, and amplified and shared out widely. Again, I was happy with the turnout on Saturday, but again, I know weather was a factor too. But this
one thing I noticed from
Yeah.
Saturday that I will say, because I posted about this online too, and I posted some of the videos that I made and pictures and stuff. There wasn't people making snide comments, which they usually do when it's a rally or any kind of progressive thing. So I don't know if there's anything to be read into that, because I didn't look this weekend to see if what the comments were on WKTV's coverage of this and OD's coverage, but I don't know. It is disappointing to think that there are people, even in the face of this, that would not get it, or would still purport to not get it. But.
Yeah, I mean, people, especially in this day and age, choose to find their own stories, their own facts,
own versions
and
of things.
echo chambers. So,
yes, we know that. Well, that's another reason why this station, 95.5 FM, is important, because we do stuff like this, and with depth.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like to do here is to really give people a chance to get their voice out there to tell their story. And so, Shana, I want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing, talking about your involvement in this, but also helping to get the voices that we heard today on this show.
I don't want to interrupt.
Let me get those out there, Brian. I want to thank you too.
If she wants her event for tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we're actually not one of the organizers.
I don't think she's involved in the event tomorrow, but there is there is going to be another protest at Marcy Correctional Facility tomorrow at noon. So this will be Tuesday at noon. So if you're hearing this on podcast or YouTube, it's happened. But if you're hearing it on the radio tomorrow at noon, there's going to be another right at the prison itself, and I'm sure there'll be some people from 95.5 covering this. So follow our Facebook page. Is really the best place to get up to date information and stuff. So just thank you both for doing the work that you did and getting this was a time when the story really wasn't about any of us in this room, but it was really about others. But I think all of us worked here to get important stories out there today.
Thank you to you and the Phoenix and Cassandra and all the staff here at the Phoenix as well for what you guys do in the community as well.
Well, we're going to keep doing it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. My guests today were Shana Dahlin from the Central New York chapter of Citizen in Action of New York. They were organizers of Saturday's Justice for Robert Brooks rally, and photographer, videographer, and podcaster Brian Lazore, who covered the event with me for this broadcast. I have the show online as a video and podcast on Wednesday. Thank you to my sound and engineer Jonathan Brooks, DJ Jay Easy, and Jim Hale, who recorded the show for YouTube and podcast. Look for it Wednesday at uticaphoenix.net/Media Monday. I'm Ron Klopfanstein, and this has been the Hot Seat on a Media Monday. Now I'm going to kick things over to Jay Easy for the Easy Ride Home.
Easy Ride Home.
Yeah.